Daddy, my ear hurts. Get out of my way. Hiroshi Tanaka roared, storming through the ER doors with a trembling 6-year-old girl in his arms. She's in pain, and you're asking for insurance first? Are you serious? A nurse stepped back, startled. Sir, we need to register. She's a child. Hiroshi thundered, eyes blazing. You want to fill out paperwork while her brain rots from infection? Is that how you treat poor kids? Or is it because she's a black Asian girl? Silence. Cold, uncomfortable silence. Another nurse whispered, Sir, please lower your voice. Hiroshi snapped, I've donated more to this hospital than your entire annual salary. But none of that matters right now. What matters is her. He pointed to the child curled against his chest, May shaking, tears streaking her cheeks, one hand clutching her ear. Get a doctor now, or I'll make sure every board member in the city knows your name and what you did. A pediatrician arrived within seconds, drawn by the chaos. I'm Dr. Lin. Let me see the girl. Hiroshi lowered May gently onto the exam table. Dr. Lin spoke softly, Hi, sweetheart. I'm going to help you, okay? Just stay still. May whimpered, It hurts. It hurts. Hiroshi took her hand. Daddy's right here, baby. It's okay. You're safe. Dr. Lin examined her ear with a scope, then froze. Hiroshi saw it, the doctor's face darkened. What is it? Hiroshi asked. Doctor? Dr. Lin glanced at the nurses, then at Hiroshi. Did she stick anything in her ear? No, Hiroshi replied firmly. She was fine this morning, then woke up screaming. The doctor called for a tray, scalpel, tweezers, magnifier. A nurse ran off. Hiroshi's voice hardened. Tell me what's going on. Dr. Lin met his eyes. Someone inserted something into her ear. Very precisely. Hiroshi stiffened. What kind of something? Dr. Lin pulled out a tiny object, black, glinting, no bigger than a pepper seed. May cried out softly. Hiroshi leaned in. What the hell is that? The doctor whispered, It's a listening device. Hiroshi blinked. What? Dr. Lin nodded. Surveillance grade, military adjacent. Not a toy. Someone placed this in her intentionally. Hiroshi clenched his jaw. Who had access to her while I was gone? The nurse returned with the tray. Dr. Lin sealed the object in an evidence bag. Who's been with her in the last 72 hours? Hiroshi's eyes narrowed. Yuki, my wife, and her mother, Aiko. They insisted I go to Osaka. Dr. Lin paused. You need to be careful. This wasn't random. Someone's watching you through her. Hiroshi stood silent, trembling with rage. Then his phone rang. Yuki. He stared at the screen. Did she know? He didn't answer. Later that night, in his office, Hiroshi pulled up security footage. Frame by frame, he watched an unknown man enter his house using a private code. No knock, no hesitation. May had drawn the same man earlier that week, no face, just one red eye like a camera lens. Hiroshi spoke aloud to himself, She didn't marry me for love. He reached for a drawer, pulled out a locked folder, and flipped through documents, prenup, insurance, stock portfolios. Then he found it, the clause. If Hiroshi died without a will revision, Yuki inherited everything. He whispered, She's trying to kill me. He walked into May's room. She slept peacefully, curled up with her stuffed bear. He sat beside her bed and whispered, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, baby girl. He touched her curls. You're not just my daughter, May. You're my light, my only reason to keep breathing. She stirred in her sleep and murmured, Love you, Daddy. Hiroshi whispered back, voice cracking, I love you too, and I swear no one's ever going to hurt you again. Not even her. May sat quietly in the passenger seat of the armored SUV, knees tucked to her chest, tiny fingers playing with the loose ear of her teddy bear. Hiroshi hadn't said a word since they left the hospital. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the road. Daddy, May whispered. Hiroshi blinked out of his haze. Yeah, baby? Am I in trouble? He turned to her, softening instantly. No, sweetheart. Not even close. She looked down. I didn't mean to get sick. Hiroshi pulled the car over and faced her fully. May, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? She nodded slowly, still unsure. He took her hand. Whatever this is, it's not your fault. Someone did something terrible, and I'm going to find out who, and I'm going to stop them. May looked at him, eyes searching. Is it mommy? Hiroshi hesitated for a breath. That's not for you to worry about. Let me handle it. He put the car back in gear and drove. Back at the penthouse, Hiroshi carried May upstairs. She was asleep before they reached the elevator. He laid her in bed gently, pulled the covers to her chin, and kissed her forehead. He stared at her for a long moment before whispering, You're safe now. Downstairs, Hiroshi stepped into his home office, locked the door, and opened a wall panel to a secure safe. Inside were encrypted drives, a backup phone, a burner laptop, and 2 manila folders labeled Yuki Tanaka and Aiko Sato. He opened Yuki's file first. Her background had always seemed clean, too clean. Ivy League PR career, no social media, no contact with her family until after they married. He pulled up her marriage application, then compared it to a loan application from 12 years prior. Different address, different employer, different last name. His chest tightened. He tapped into his database, bypassed several firewalls, and found the truth: Yuki Tanaka was once Yuki Hayashi. Before that, Emi Nakamura. 3 legal name changes across 2 prefectures. Next, he checked her financials. Monthly transfers to a private LLC labeled Sakura Consulting. No services rendered, no invoices, no emails, just quiet 1 million yen payments every 15th. He copied the transactions into a secure file. Then he checked footage from the house security system from the week before. At 9:18 p.m. Thursday, while he was speaking on stage in Osaka, a man entered his home through the side door. Short build, baseball cap, gloved hands, no hesitation, went straight to Mei's bedroom. 15 minutes later, Hiroshi rewound the security footage and paused. The man had touched Mei's pillow and her ear. He clenched his fists. Son of a... His phone buzzed. Kenji. Hiroshi picked up. Talk to me. Kenji's voice was low. You were right. Yuki's background is full of holes. No college records exist under her maiden name. Her social security number links to an old intelligence firm based out of Tokyo, went dark in 2018. Espionage? Hiroshi asked. Private sector corporate surveillance, used to target high-value startups. Sound familiar? Hiroshi exhaled. She married me for access. I'd say so, Kenji muttered. And it gets worse. Go on. She's already met with a divorce attorney named Reiko Mori. Real shark. Specializes in asset seizure, mental health evaluations, and full parental custody. Hiroshi closed his eyes. They're building a case, he said flatly. Yeah, Kenji confirmed. And that device in Mei's ear? It wasn't just to listen. It's bait. If you get angry enough, paranoid enough, they'll call you unstable. She gets your company, your kid, and walks away clean. Hiroshi said nothing for a long beat. You still there? Kenji asked. I'm here, Hiroshi said finally. Get me everything. Emails, texts, metadata. I want her entire digital footprint. If she breathed near a phone, I want it on file. You got it. Hiroshi hung up, then sat in silence. His world was cracking at the seams. He had trusted Yuki, loved her, or thought he had. He remembered their first date, her precise questions, her interest in his startup's growth model, her fascination with his software infrastructure. At the time, he thought she was smart. Now he realized she'd been probing. He went back to Mei's sketchbook and flipped through the pages: rainbows, stick figures, cats, and then another house, a different room, a hotel room, neatly drawn, television on the wall, coffee maker, 2 pillows. It was the same suite he had stayed in during a trip to Kyoto 5 months ago. He stared. Mei had drawn it from memory. She had been there but never mentioned it. He flipped the page. Another figure, a woman standing at the door, curly hair, holding a suitcase. Yuki. Hiroshi whispered, you followed me. His heart pounded. She hadn't trusted him. Or maybe it was part of her job to plant something while he was away. He remembered the charger that had been warm, even though he hadn't used it. He dug it out of his travel bag and cracked it open. Inside, a thin chip wired along the inner shell. He held it under the desk lamp. A soft glint. Hiroshi sat back in his chair. Yuki hadn't just betrayed him. She had violated the one sacred bond he had left, his relationship with Mei. His voice was ice. She messed with the wrong little girl. He stood, walked to Mei's room, and opened the door quietly. She was still sleeping. He knelt by her side and took her small hand. From now on, he whispered, I don't just protect you. I fight for you. The war had just begun. The next morning, Hiroshi Tanaka stood in the kitchen in a black t-shirt and sweatpants, frying eggs in silence. The penthouse felt colder than usual, despite the soft Tokyo sunlight pouring through the glass. Mei sat at the island counter, slowly stirring a bowl of rice porridge, her teddy bear tucked under one arm. Hiroshi glanced at her. Sleep okay? She nodded, not looking up. Yes, Daddy. He slid the eggs onto a plate and placed it in front of her. Eat up? Big day today. What are we doing? She asked, finally meeting his eyes. We're going to visit someone. Someone smart. Mei blinked. Are they a doctor? He smiled faintly. Smarter than most doctors. By 10 a.m., they pulled into the gated campus of Yamato Labs, a quiet facility tucked in the hills outside Tokyo. The guard waved them through without hesitation. Hiroshi's name still carried weight in places where technology and money shook hands in secret. They entered through a side door, no sign-in, no waiting room. Dr. Haruto Lin stood waiting in the private diagnostics room, lab coat unbuttoned, glasses low on his nose. "Mr. Tanaka," he said, shaking his hand. Then he bent to Mei. "Hello again, young lady." Mei smiled shyly. "Hi." Haruto motioned them inside. "I've had the object analyzed overnight. We ran it through 3 scanners. You'll want to see this." Hiroshi followed him to a back room where a metal tray held the tiny black device. Haruto pointed at the monitor behind him. A rotating 3D image showed the device's interior, dense circuitry, microbatteries, an antenna coil, and a polymer coating designed to resist detection. "It's custom-built," Haruto said. "Military adjacent, not available commercially. Whoever made this had resources and access." "Transmission range?" Hiroshi asked. "Up to 60 meters in urban environments, stronger in open areas." Hiroshi stared at the screen. "Did it transmit anything?" Haruto nodded slowly. "It activated 4 times, each for 15 minutes, all between 7 and 10 p.m. the nights you were gone. Audio only. No storage, just live transmission?" "Yes." Hiroshi folded his arms. "Can you tell where the receiver was?" Haruto hesitated. "That's harder, but I pulled signal echoes. The closest ping was triangulated to a condo address in Shibuya." Hiroshi's jaw tightened. "Yuki's mother." Haruto nodded. "And if you're wondering how it got into Mei's ear, there's only one explanation. She was held down." Hiroshi said coldly, "They used my child to spy on me." Behind them, Mei sat quietly on a padded bench, swinging her legs. She hummed to herself softly, oblivious to the gravity of the war unfolding around her. Hiroshi knelt in front of her. "Mei, do you remember anyone touching your ear last week?" She looked up. "Grandma Aiko said it was waxy. She used a light and something small." Hiroshi kept his voice steady. "Okay, sweetheart. Thank you for telling me." "Did it hurt?" Hiroshi asked softly. Mei nodded a little. "She told me not to tell mommy or you." Hiroshi stood slowly, fists clenched. "Thank you, sweetheart." He turned to Haruto. "I need a copy of the report, digital and printed, every detail." Haruto handed him a sealed envelope and a flash drive. "Already prepared." Hiroshi looked him in the eye. "Don't tell anyone about this. Not even your wife." Haruto gave a firm nod. That evening, Hiroshi waited in the dining room of his penthouse. The table was set, candlelight, sushi, 2 glasses of sake. Yuki arrived exactly at 7, heels clicking on the tile. She kissed him on the cheek. "Fancy tonight?" Hiroshi smiled. "Just missed you." She glanced toward the hallway. "Where's Mei?" "Watching a movie. She's had a long day." Yuki sat down, unfolding her napkin. "She seemed tired last night, too." Hiroshi poured her sake. Growing fast. They made small talk, schedules, school forms, neighborhood gossip. She laughed at all the right moments, touched his arm at just the right beats. Then, halfway through the meal, Hiroshi set his chopsticks down. "The doctor said it wasn't an ear infection," he said, voice even. "They found something else." Yuki paused. "What do you mean?" He looked up. "They pulled a transmitter out of Mei's ear. Surveillance grade, placed intentionally." Her glass shook slightly. "Do you know anything about that?" he asked. She blinked. "Of course not. That's insane." "Your mother did it," Hiroshi continued. "She told Mei not to say a word. But kids remember, especially when it hurts." Yuki set her sake down. "You're accusing my mother now?" "I'm accusing both of you," he said calmly. "Of endangering my child, of planting a bug in my daughter to spy on me. Of betrayal." Yuki stood, voice rising. "You're paranoid. This is insane." Hiroshi stood too. "Is it? Or did you think I wouldn't notice the money transfers to Sakura Consulting? The falsified resume? The man who entered my house Thursday night using a code only family knows." Her lips parted, but no words came. Hiroshi leaned forward, inches from her face. "You married me with a purpose. You built a life around my name, my money, my company." Silence. "Who's your real employer, Yuki?" She said nothing. "I'll find out," he said softly. "With or without your help." Yuki turned and walked toward the elevator. Hiroshi called out, "Try anything stupid, and I go straight to the police. This time, they won't believe your tears." The door slid shut behind her. Upstairs, Mei peeked out from her room. "Daddy?" Hiroshi picked her up and held her close. "Did mommy get mad?" He kissed her forehead. "She's just confused, honey." Mei snuggled against his chest. Can we move again? Hiroshi looked out over the Tokyo skyline, lights shimmering like ghosts. Yes, he said. We will soon. And this time, he thought, she'll never find us. 2 days later, the knock came at precisely 8:42 a.m. sharp, calculated. Hiroshi opened the door to find a woman in a gray blazer and a man with a badge clipped to his belt. Mr. Tanaka, the woman asked. Yes, he replied, already feeling the shift in the air. We're with Child Protective Services, she said, flashing a badge. We received an anonymous tip regarding unsafe living conditions for your daughter. Hiroshi didn't blink. Come in. May had already left for school with the neighbor. Thank God. He led the agents through the penthouse, calm, composed, despite the pounding in his chest. The man checked the refrigerator. The woman opened the medicine cabinet. Both scribbled notes. The woman asked about schedules, routines, emotional behavior. She sleeps fine, eats well. School reports are excellent. You're welcome to speak with her teacher, Hiroshi said smoothly. The man looked around the living room. Any weapons in the house? Only logic, Hiroshi replied. The woman arched a brow. Are you under stress, Mr. Tanaka? He smiled thinly. Only when people try to take my daughter. 20 minutes later, they left. No threats, no conclusions, just we'll be in touch. Hiroshi closed the door and stood still. His pulse thudded in his ears. The game had escalated. He walked into his office, opened the evidence box, and began scanning documents, surveillance photos, financial statements, copies of the transmitter report. He checked the drawer. The box was gone. Hiroshi froze. He checked the closet, open. He never left it open. He scanned the floor, the shelves, the safe. Nothing. His blood ran cold. No sign of forced entry. No broken locks, no fingerprint smudges, just absence. He walked straight to the computer and pulled up security footage. The last 24 hours were corrupted. The camera feeds blinked black between 2 and 5 a.m. erased. He exhaled sharply. They were here. He opened the wall panel, checking the backup drives. Gone. Only one person could move that silently. Yuki. That night, he sat in the dark at his desk, May asleep down the hall. He held her sketchbook in one hand, flipping through drawings, searching for something, anything, that told him she was still safe. Page after page. Then he saw it, a drawing of a fire, red crayon flames, black smoke, a bed in the middle, a stuffed bear half melted. His heart stopped. He flipped to the next page, the same room. This time, the fire had spread to the ceiling. He grabbed his phone, raced down the hall to May's room, and flung the door open. The smell hit him first, burning plastic, then smoke. Thick gray smoke rolled from behind the dresser. May, he shouted, running to her. She stirred, coughing. Daddy. He scooped her into his arms and ran. The hallway filled with heat. The alarm hadn't even gone off. He burst out onto the balcony, gasping for air, May clinging to his chest. From below, sirens howled. 15 minutes later, the fire was out. The lead firefighter, a gray-bearded man with sunken eyes, pulled Hiroshi aside. Short circuit in the wall, he said. Behind the dresser. It was tampered with. Someone rewired it wrong, deliberately. Hiroshi stared at the charred remains of May's room. He whispered, they tried to kill her. The next morning, Hiroshi walked into the local police station carrying a heavy black briefcase. The officer at the front desk barely looked up. I need to file a report, Hiroshi said. Child endangerment, attempted arson, surveillance, fraud. The officer raised a brow. You got proof? Hiroshi opened the briefcase. Inside were copies of the hospital report, photos of the transmitter, the fire report, screenshots of financial transfers, and backup audio from a conversation between Yuki and her mother. He placed each piece on the desk one by one. The officer stared, then picked up the phone. By noon, Detective Ayasato sat across from him, flipping through pages. This is extensive, she said. Hiroshi leaned forward. It's not paranoia. It's warfare. Your wife and her mother, you think they're working together? I don't think, he said. I know. She nodded slowly. All right. I'm assigning 2 officers. We'll start a formal investigation tonight. At 5:37 p.m., Hiroshi received a call from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. Mr. Tanaka, we've located your wife. Where? She was stopped at a rest stop off the Tomei Expressway. She had your daughter in the back seat. No child seat, luggage packed. Said she was going to visit family. Hiroshi's grip tightened on the phone. Is May okay? She's fine. A bit scared. Sitting with one of our officers right now. I'm on my way. 2 hours later, he pulled into the rest stop parking lot. The scene was surreal, police lights flashing, Yuki sitting in the back of a cruiser, staring out the window blank-faced. Her mother, Aiko, was being questioned nearby. Mei sat on the bumper of a patrol car, sipping juice, hugging her bear. Hiroshi knelt beside her. "Hey, baby girl. Daddy." She threw her arms around his neck. He held her tightly, heart pounding. "I've got you. I've always got you." One of the officers approached. "She's safe, but it's a good thing we stopped them." They were hours from the port. Yuki was being led away in cuffs. She didn't look back. Aiko tried to argue until she saw Hiroshi watching, then lowered her head. That night, back home, Hiroshi tucked Mei into the guest room, the only one untouched by the fire. She whispered, "Will they come back?" He kissed her forehead. "Never again." She closed her eyes, hand holding tight to his, and for the first time in weeks, she slept soundly. Hiroshi walked into his office, sat down, and opened the drawer. Inside was a new tracker, small, silent, GPS-enabled. He held it between his fingers. They'd get out someday, maybe not soon, but when they did, he'd be ready. He pressed the button. A red light blinked once, then vanished. 1 week later, Hiroshi Tanaka stood outside the courtroom, hands folded tightly behind his back, his dark suit pristine, his jaw like carved stone. Inside, behind heavy oak doors, the trial had begun, State vs. Yuki Hayashi, aka Yuki Tanaka, and Aiko Sato. Charges: conspiracy, child endangerment, attempted arson, unlawful surveillance, and fraud. Mei wasn't there. She was with Mrs. Kimura, a retired librarian Hiroshi trusted more than any relative. A quiet woman with a garden full of cherry blossoms and a cat named Momo who never left Mei's side. Hiroshi didn't want his daughter hearing the words they were about to say about her mother, about what had been done to her. Not yet, maybe not ever. Inside the courtroom, Detective Sato testified first. "We found custom surveillance equipment embedded in the child's ear, confirmed by forensic analysis. It was placed during the father's absence. The only adults present were the defendant and her mother." The defense objected. "Objection overruled," the judge said firmly. Hiroshi watched from behind the glass wall. Yuki sat at the defense table, hands folded in her lap. She wore a black dress, minimal makeup, her hair tied back. She looked like a woman in mourning, but not once did she look toward the observation window. Aiko sat beside her, rigid, silent, like someone holding her breath through a storm. The prosecutor stood. "We will prove today that these women conspired to infiltrate Mr. Tanaka's life, his business, and his child's body for the purpose of corporate theft and personal gain. What they underestimated was his refusal to break." Hiroshi leaned his head against the cool glass. He remembered the first time he saw Yuki, at a gala in Tokyo. She was asking sharp questions about cybersecurity infrastructure over sake. He'd mistaken it for intelligence. Now he saw it for what it was, reconnaissance. By noon, the court replayed the audio Hiroshi had secretly recorded from Yuki's car. Her voice filled the room, distorted but clear. "It's almost done. The deal goes through next week. Once they acquire the platform, we shut it all down. He'll lose everything." Aiko's voice followed, faint but focused. "And the custody?" "Same strategy," Yuki replied. "Once we show he's unstable, it's over." The jury sat frozen. Yuki didn't react, no tears, no denial, just silence. Hiroshi stepped back from the glass and walked outside into the midday sun. He didn't need to hear more. He knew how it ended. By 4:30 p.m., the verdict came in, guilty on all charges. The courtroom murmured. Yuki finally looked up, but not at the jury or the judge. Her eyes went to the empty gallery seats. Hiroshi wasn't there. He was already halfway across town, sitting beside Mei on the swings at Yoyogi Park. "Push me higher, Daddy," she laughed, arms out wide, eyes gleaming. He smiled. "You got it, kiddo." The sky above them was the soft orange of peace. 2 weeks later, they moved. New town, new apartment, smaller, simpler. A place where nobody cared who Hiroshi Tanaka was, where Mei could just be a little girl with a sparkly lunchbox and a new friend named Sakura who shared her crayons. Hiroshi built a home office in the spare room, no security cameras, just paper notebooks and photos of Mei on the wall. He cooked dinner every night, taught Mei how to fold laundry, let her fall asleep on the couch during anime, and every Friday they walked to the bakery for red bean buns and hot cocoa. But at night, sometimes he still woke with a start, a noise in the hall, a flicker of shadow under the door. Each time, he'd get up, check the locks, then check on Mei. She always slept with the bear in her arms now, the one that smelled like smoke. One evening, as he tucked her in, she looked up at him with wide eyes. "Daddy, are we safe now?" He smiled, brushing a curl from her face. "Yes, Mei. We're safe. And I'll always keep it that way." "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby. Do monsters ever come back?" Hiroshi paused. "Sometimes, but if they do, they won't get far." Mei nodded. Because you're here. He kissed her forehead. Because I'll never leave. Down the hall, Hiroshi sat at his desk. He opened the drawer and took out the tracker he'd activated the night Yuki and Aiko were arrested. He checked the location feed, still at the detention center, still blinking quietly. But he wasn't watching just them anymore. He was watching the silence, because people like Yuki didn't act alone. There were layers, money, clients, names he hadn't found yet. He had time now, time to trace the contracts, to follow the shell companies, to build what his lawyer called a wall of proof so tall no shadow could cross it. He tapped the device once, then closed the drawer. Outside, the wind moved through the cherry blossoms. Inside, the house was still. Mei turned in her sleep, murmuring softly, "Love you, Daddy." Hiroshi whispered back from down the hall, "Always." And for the first time in months, he let himself close his eyes, knowing the war might not be over, but she was safe, and that was enough. One rainy Thursday morning, Hiroshi sat alone at a cafe near Mei's new school. The window beside him rattled softly as wind pushed against the glass. A mug of black coffee steamed between his hands. His laptop sat closed on the table, untouched. He wasn't working. He was waiting. The door opened with a chime, and Kenji slid into the booth across from him, wearing a soaked jacket and carrying a manila envelope. "I ran it all down," Kenji said, pulling the hood off his head. Sakura Consulting wasn't just a front. They're part of a layered web of shell firms registered in Singapore, the Caymans, and, oddly, Okinawa. Hiroshi sipped his coffee. "Go on." Each month, for the last 3 years, money's been funneled in from a parent company called Kaizen Systems. Ever heard of it? Hiroshi nodded slowly. They bid against me 3 years ago. Tried to steal a contract with the Ministry of Defense. Lost. Kenji raised a brow. Then someone held a grudge. The man behind Kaizen, Takashi Mori, was head of strategic operations at Nexus Analytics. Yuki's former employer. Hiroshi leaned back, eyes narrowing. So this wasn't just betrayal. No, Kenji said. It was revenge. Professional and personal. They planted her in your life to monitor, distract, report, and, if necessary, dismantle. Hiroshi tapped a finger against the mug. She married me for a mission. And when it didn't go fast enough, they went after your daughter, Kenji added. Hiroshi's jaw tightened. Do we have proof linking Mori? Not direct, Kenji said, but enough circumstantial data to make his life miserable if you leak it to the press. Payments, email metadata, time logs. Hiroshi reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. Give it to my lawyer. Tell her to prep a civil suit, racketeering, corporate sabotage, child endangerment. Throw everything. Kenji nodded. You sure you want to go public? I won't, Hiroshi said. But I want him to know I can. Later that afternoon, Hiroshi picked Mei up from school. She ran toward him in a yellow raincoat, backpack bouncing, a grin wide across her face. Daddy, I got a gold star. He knelt to hug her. That's amazing, sweet pea. She looked up. Sakura says her mom is making mochi tonight. Can I go? Hiroshi hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I'll call her mom. We'll set it up. They walked home in the light rain, hand in hand. At home, Hiroshi reheated leftover miso soup, and Mei curled up on the couch watching anime. The house smelled of umami and warm rice. Ordinary, peaceful. After dinner, Hiroshi opened his laptop in the study and typed for the first time in weeks, not code, but a letter to Mei. He wrote slowly, deliberately. My sweet Mei, there are things you may never know about your mother, about how she entered our lives, what she did, and what she tried to take. But what matters more is what she couldn't destroy, you, your laugh, your light, your incredible strength. You are not a mistake. You are not broken. You are not marked by what was done to you. You are mine. Chosen, loved, protected. He saved the letter, encrypted it, and stored it in 3 separate drives. Then he checked the tracker again. Yuki was still in holding. Aiko, too. But someone else had moved. Takashi Mori, GPS ping, private jet, departed Tokyo, landed in Singapore. Hiroshi called Kenji. He moved. Yeah, Kenji said. They always do when they know they've been found. Send someone to follow him. Already did. He's meeting with a new investor, tech firm out of Shanghai. Hiroshi exhaled. He's planning to start over. That's what snakes do. Then we burn the next nest, too. The next day, Hiroshi received a letter. No stamp, no return address. It had been slipped under his door. He opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note. We never meant to hurt her, just you. You made the game personal. Now you've made it war. No signature, just an address, a storage unit in Shinjuku. Hiroshi folded the note slowly, then called Detective Sato. I'm bringing something in, he said. You'll want a warrant. 2 hours later, he watched as officers pried open the storage unit. Inside were hard drives, surveillance gear, 2 burner phones, and a printed map of Hiroshi's old office with exit routes marked. The detective turned to him. They were planning something bigger. Hiroshi nodded. They always were. Back at home, he tucked Mei into bed. She was half asleep, one arm around her stuffed bear. Did you check for monsters? She mumbled. He smiled. Every corner. Nothing but dust. She smiled and drifted off. Hiroshi sat beside her for a long time, watching her breathe, remembering how close he came to losing everything, not just his company, not just his name, but her. He whispered, "You are my legacy. Not the tech, not the patents, not the deals." Then he kissed her forehead and stood. In the study, he opened a new document, titled The Blueprint of Betrayal. It wouldn't be code this time. It would be testimony, the kind that shook boardrooms and unseated men like Takashi Mori. Because Hiroshi Tanaka was done playing defense. They came for his daughter. Now he was coming for their world. 4 days later, Hiroshi sat across from his lawyer in a private office overlooking downtown Tokyo. Rain streaked the glass behind them. The air smelled of leather, ink, and storm. His lawyer, Akiko Yamada, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, tapped her pen twice against the table and leaned forward. "This," she said, sliding a printed report across the desk, "is enough to terrify a corporation, but not enough to bury one." Hiroshi scanned the top page, payment logs, surveillance contracts, back-channel communication metadata, every line pointing back to Kaizen systems, and through them, Takashi Mori. "They used my daughter," Hiroshi said softly, "as a listening post. If that doesn't count as grounds for full legal obliteration, what does?" Akiko gave him a look. "You want justice or revenge?" Hiroshi's answer was instant. "Both." Akiko leaned back. "Then we'll need a bigger hammer. I suggest we find someone inside Kaizen. A weak link. Someone they burned. Someone willing to talk." Hiroshi nodded. "Start digging." As he stood to leave, Akiko asked, "Have you told Mei anything yet about the trial? Her mother?" He shook his head. "She knows Mommy's not coming back. That's enough." That night, Hiroshi picked Mei up from Mrs. Kimura's and walked her home in the rain. She held his hand, her purple boots splashing through shallow puddles. "Daddy," she asked, "is it okay that I don't miss her?" He paused. "It's okay to feel whatever you feel." Mei looked up. "Sakura said mommies are supposed to love you more than anyone." Hiroshi tightened his grip gently. "Some mommies don't know how, but that's not your fault." She nodded slowly. "I like it better here." He smiled. "Me too." Back home, after dinner and 2 chapters of a Japanese fairy tale book, Mei fell asleep on the couch, snoring softly into a pillow. Hiroshi carried her to bed and tucked her in, whispering, "Good night." Then he returned to the study. The rain hadn't stopped. He poured a glass of shochu and turned to the whiteboard, now covered in photos, documents, and red marker arrows connecting names. At the top, Takashi Mori. Beneath it, Kaizen Systems. To the side, Sakura Consulting, and lower, Yuki Tanaka, Aiko Sato. He stared at the map for a long time, then added a name, Ryo Vance, former Kaizen Systems analyst, terminated 2 years ago after blowing the whistle on internal black box surveillance programs. Kenji had found him living off-grid in a cabin near Mount Fuji. Hiroshi booked a flight the next morning. By sunset, he was standing outside a weathered cabin in the woods, wind slicing through the cedar trees. A dog barked from inside. The door opened, and a bearded man in a flannel shirt stood in the doorway, holding a rifle loosely. "You Tanaka?" "Yes." "You got 2 minutes." Hiroshi didn't flinch. "They used my daughter. 6 years old. Listening device in her ear." Ryo blinked. "Come in." Inside, the cabin smelled like old paper and charcoal. Boxes lined the walls, stacks of printed code, handwritten notes, old hard drives. Hiroshi sat on a folding chair. Ryo poured 2 cups of tea from a dented kettle. "They used to call it Shadownet," Ryo said. "That's the system Kaizen ran. Private surveillance contracts for corporations. Embedded devices, proximity audio, high-value targets only." "How did they choose?" Ryo chuckled bitterly. "They didn't. Clients did. CEOs, rivals, journalists, whoever could afford it." Hiroshi leaned forward. "I want records. Proof." Ryo studied him. "They'll come after you. They already did. They failed." Ryo pulled a box from under the table. Inside were 3 drives and a worn notebook. "Everything I salvaged when I left. Names, locations, contract IDs, including Yuki Hayashi's handler." Hiroshi's breath caught. "Handler?" Ryo nodded. "They didn't send her in blind. She had someone feeding her intel, prepping her every move. His name's Kenzo Faro. Works from the shadows. Hiroshi took the box. Thank you. Ryo looked at him. Be careful. These people don't forget. They erase. Hiroshi stood. So do I. He drove back to the airport with the box beside him, fingers tapping the steering wheel. Rain battered the windshield like static. Back in Tokyo, he handed the drives to Akiko. She looked through the files, her expression hardening. You have everything now. This isn't just a civil suit. This is wire fraud, organized surveillance, possibly even organized crime. Hiroshi looked out the window. Make the call. That night, as May slept, he stepped onto the balcony, the cold wind stinging his face. He dialed a number from memory. The man who answered spoke in a quiet, Osaka-accented voice. Tanaka. I'm activating the file, Hiroshi said. The one we buried 5 years ago. A pause. Are you sure? They crossed the line. Another pause. It'll expose everything. Even your name. Hiroshi exhaled. Then I'll wear it. He hung up. Back inside, he checked May's room one more time. She was curled under the covers, holding her bear, safe and warm. He whispered, they wanted war. Then he turned off the light. They just got one. 3 weeks later, the story broke. Front page of the Asahi Shimbun, black box surveillance ring exposed, former tech CEO Hiroshi Tanaka speaks out. Inside, a full exposé, names, schematics, confidential documents, and a photo of a tiny listening device extracted from the ear of a 6-year-old girl. Her name was redacted, her identity protected, but the world knew. Hiroshi hadn't spoken directly to the press. He didn't have to. The documents from Rio Vance, combined with testimony from Detective Sato and legal filings from Akiko Yamada, did the talking for him. News outlets exploded, morning shows, think pieces, panel discussions. People were outraged, not just because of the technology, but because someone had turned a child into a target. Hiroshi watched it unfold from the living room, sitting on the couch. May curled beside him, oblivious, coloring in a notebook. He muted the television as her favorite anime came on. Daddy, she said, holding up her drawing. This one's you. He smiled. Looks just like me. See, you gave me a cape because I'm like a superhero. May grinned. You're the real hero, Daddy. He pulled her close and kissed her temple. You're the real hero, baby girl. I just followed the clues. That night, Hiroshi received a call from Akiko. We got a subpoena. For who? Kenzo Faro. The NPA found him. He's being held at a secure facility near Osaka. He wants to talk. Hiroshi didn't hesitate. Schedule it. 2 days later, Hiroshi boarded a private flight arranged by the National Police Agency. No press, no cameras, just silence and clouds. The interrogation room was small, cold, and windowless. Kenzo Faro sat chained to the steel table. Late 40s, trim beard, a suit that looked like it once cost a fortune, now wrinkled and stained. Hiroshi entered alone. No tie, no guards, just rage and calm wearing the same face. Kenzo looked up, smiling faintly. I wondered when you'd show. Hiroshi sat, said nothing. You're not what I expected, Kenzo continued. Your file said you were quiet, private, obsessive maybe, but not this. Hiroshi spoke softly. You put a device in my daughter. Kenzo nodded. Technically, I didn't, but yes, under my direction. Hiroshi's knuckles whitened. You want answers, Kenzo said, leaning forward. I'll give you one. You weren't the target. Not really. Your software was. You just got in the way. Hiroshi's voice didn't rise. You used a 6-year-old child. Kenzo shrugged. It was clean. No visible entry point. Perfect cover. Hiroshi leaned in, his voice like steel wrapped in silk. You know what they call people who harm children? Kenzo laughed quietly. You think I care about names? You've already exposed us. The firm's done. Kaizen's folding. My accounts are frozen. The walls are caving in. Then why talk? Hiroshi asked. Because there's one more name you don't have. Hiroshi's eyes narrowed. Who? Kenzo smiled, slower this time. The buyer. Hiroshi froze. There was a second party, Kenzo said. Not Kaizen, not Sakura. International. They didn't just want surveillance. They wanted replication. They wanted your entire algorithm rebuilt, mirror structure, silent tracking, passive learning. You developed it, but they were going to make it theirs. Hiroshi swallowed. What's the name? Kenzo tilted his head. I'll trade. For what? Protection. Hiroshi stood. Rot in here. As he reached the door, Kenzo called out, they're still watching, Tanaka. You think you're done, but this story doesn't end with me or Mori or your ex-wife. Hiroshi paused. You talk, or you disappear forever. Kenzo's smile faded. He leaned forward, whispered the name. Hiroshi's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes turned cold, hollow. He walked out without another word. Back in Tokyo, Mei was at a birthday party when Hiroshi returned. He sat alone in the kitchen, the name echoing in his head. He typed it into his encrypted system, Asahi Technical Institute, Shanghai. A shell, no public footprint, but tied to 3 tech espionage cases in the past 6 years. Now, somehow linked to Mei. He poured a drink, didn't sip. Later that evening, Mei came running through the door, covered in mochi powder and glitter, shouting, "Daddy, I got 2 taiyaki." Hiroshi smiled. "You're glowing." "I saved you one," she said, handing him a crumpled wrapper with red bean filling. He laughed and hugged her close. But even in that moment, something inside him stayed quiet, focused. That night, he packed a small bag, passport, documents, a backup drive. He left a note on his desk, "If I don't come back in 7 days, activate file Sigma. Mei goes to Kimura. All assets transferred, and no one touches her again." He kissed Mei on the forehead as she slept, then turned off the lights. Justice wasn't finished, and neither was he. Shanghai, 3:17 a.m. The city pulsed with neon and mist, each tower stretching into a sky of shifting fog. Hiroshi Tanaka stepped out of the car near the Bund, blending into the cold air with a dark wool coat and gloves. No watch, no jewelry, no device that could be tracked, just a disposable phone, a secure drive in his inner pocket, and a name that burned like a brand in his mind. Asahi Technical Institute wasn't listed in any tourist guide, didn't have a corporate sign, and didn't need one. It operated beneath the surface, for floors below a dull gray office complex labeled Shanghai Logistics Consulting. Hiroshi showed no hesitation as he passed through the front door. Inside, a single man at a desk glanced up, surprised. "Do you have an appointment?" Hiroshi didn't answer. He placed a black chip the size of a coin on the counter. The man stared at it. Recognition flashed in his eyes. "I'll call the director," he said, standing. Within minutes, Hiroshi was led down an elevator deeper than any listed in the building's blueprint. When the doors opened, it felt like stepping into another country, cold LED lights, glass walls, silent corridors that echoed with tension. They brought him to a room with no windows. Inside sat a woman in her 40s, hair slicked back, dark eyes unreadable. Her name was Wei Chen. She didn't offer a hand. "Mr. Tanaka," she said in crisp English. "I must admit, I didn't think you'd come yourself." Hiroshi took a seat. "You tried to replicate my algorithm." She tilted her head. "We paid for access through your wife." "She's in prison now," Hiroshi said evenly. "A temporary state." Hiroshi's jaw flexed. "You used a child." "My child." "She wasn't harmed. She was marked." Hiroshi leaned forward. "You will delete every copy of that code. You will destroy every backup, every schematic, every byte of what you stole, or I will make sure every intelligence agency from Tokyo to Langley knows exactly who you are." Wei Chen chuckled softly. "You think you have that kind of reach?" Hiroshi reached into his coat, placed a drive on the table. "You remember Project Kuro?" Her eyes flickered. "I do. This drive contains everything your people tried to wipe from that incident: video logs, intercepted calls, internal audits that place your hands on 4 separate violations of international surveillance law." Her voice was low now. "That was sealed." "Not anymore," Hiroshi replied. "You wipe your hands clean of me and my daughter, or the world burns with you." Wei Chen stared at him, quiet for several beats. Then, finally, she said, "You are not the man they described. Then they underestimated me." She tapped the table twice, a silent signal. A man entered, whispered something in Mandarin. She nodded, then turned back to Hiroshi. "Done," she said. "The backups are being purged. Your name and your daughter's biometric profiles are erased from our systems. The code will never surface again. You have my word." Hiroshi stood. "I never wanted a war. But I will never lose it either." As he turned to leave, she spoke once more. "There's one more thing you should know." He paused. "The tracking device placed in your daughter wasn't just for listening. It was paired with a sleeper protocol, something your ex-wife didn't know. If it had been activated remotely, it could have delivered a microdose of sedative into her bloodstream." Hiroshi turned slowly, face pale. "She was never in physical danger from us," Wei Chen added. "But had someone else accessed the code, your rivals, perhaps, it could have been triggered unintentionally." "Meaning?" he asked. "Meaning," she said evenly, "you didn't just save her life from betrayal. You saved it from the worst kind of accident." Hiroshi said nothing. He simply left. By sunrise, he was back on the plane. Tokyo felt like another planet when he landed. The sun was warm, the streets slow. As he stepped into the apartment, the smell of red bean paste and green tea greeted him. May looked up from the table and ran straight into his arms. "Daddy," she shouted. "You're back." He knelt and held her tight. "Yeah, baby, I'm back." She pulled back to look at him. "You were gone a long time. I had to make sure some bad people don't come back." She nodded seriously. "Did you win?" He smiled softly. "We both did." Later that evening, Hiroshi watched her draw at the table, the sunset brushing across her curls. She drew a house, a girl, and a man beside it. She wrote a name above the door, "Home." Hiroshi stepped outside to the balcony. He looked at the horizon, clear, golden, open. He pulled out the tracker, pressed the button. The light blinked once, then went dark. Justice was done. And the story, the one no one else could have written, was finally over. Under the soft lamplight of their modest Tokyo apartment, May sat cross-legged on the floor, crayon in hand, drawing spirals of sunshine around a stick-figure family. Hiroshi sat on the couch behind her, staring at an envelope he'd found wedged beneath their front door that morning. No return address, no markings, just one line written in rushed black ink, "You still owe her the truth." His jaw tightened. He glanced at May. She hummed softly, immersed in her art, completely unaware that the world had once again tilted beneath her feet. Hiroshi stood, walked into the kitchen, and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. The line buzzed 3 times before a voice answered, low, raspy, familiar. "You finally opened it," the man said. "Why now?" Hiroshi replied. "Because your daughter's safe." "But that's not the end, Hiroshi. You know it." Hiroshi swallowed hard. "Tell me." "The girl's mother didn't act alone. You already figured that out." Weichin confirmed as much. "There's more. You need to come to Hokkaido. Same place we used to train. Tomorrow night. Bring the girl." Hiroshi's fist clenched. "I'm not dragging her back into this. You already did the moment you kept the truth from her." The line went dead. The next morning, Hiroshi dropped May off at her new arts charter school in Harajuku. The principal, Mrs. Hanamori, greeted them warmly. "We're honored to have May join us," she said kindly. "She's special." Hiroshi nodded. "She is." Back in the car, he dialed another number. This time it rang longer. Finally, a woman's voice answered. "I thought I told you to disappear," she said. "Hello to you too, Kaori," Hiroshi replied. She exhaled sharply. "Why are you calling me?" "Because it's not over. And because you're the only one I trust to keep May safe while I'm gone." Silence. "Please," he added. "When?" "Tonight. I'll be there in 2 hours." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Kaori arrived, leather jacket, tight ponytail, eyes sharp as ever. May took to her instantly, sensing the quiet strength in her. Hiroshi crouched beside his daughter. "I need to go for a few days," he said gently. May looked up, curious. "Are you going to fight the bad people again?" "No," he replied. "This time I'm going to tell the truth." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "Come back fast, Daddy." "I will." Hiroshi drove through the night, past mountains and mist and long-forgotten road signs. Hokkaido greeted him with the ghost of autumn, the trees half-clad, the air whispering old memories. He parked at the foot of a trail, hiked an hour through woods that once trained him to kill. At the summit stood a lone cabin, gray, wooden, silent. Inside, the man from the phone sat at a table, pouring 2 cups of tea. "You remember how to find this place?" the man said. "I remember everything," Hiroshi replied. The man handed him a photo, black and white, grainy, dated 2004. It was Yuki, but not as Hiroshi remembered her. "She was embedded," the man said. "Years before she met you, assigned to extract intel from your team. Fell in love with you anyway. That wasn't the plan." Hiroshi stared at the image. "Why didn't I know this?" "Because you didn't want to." The man pushed another document forward, a birth certificate. It wasn't May's original one. Hiroshi's breath caught. "You're saying she's not biologically hers. May isn't her daughter." Hiroshi dropped into the nearest chair. "Then who?" "May's father was a programmer in Nigeria, assassinated before she was born. Your wife posed as his widow, smuggled the child into Japan, and used her as cover. She never wanted to raise May, just needed a story to disappear into. You were her escape route." Hiroshi felt the floor shift beneath him. "She never told me. Because somewhere along the line, you became a real father to May, and that ruined the operation." Hiroshi rubbed his eyes. "Why does this matter now?" "Because the people your wife ran from, they found the girl's bloodline, and they're looking for her." Hiroshi stood. "Then I need to protect her again." "No," the man said. "This time, you need to tell her. She needs to know who she really is and what's coming." Hiroshi stared at the fire flickering in the hearth. Every instinct screamed to shield her, but the truth was now a weapon, and silence only sharpened its edge. He drove back to Tokyo in silence, heart heavier than any battle he'd fought. When he entered the apartment, Mei was asleep on the couch, curled beside Kaori. He tucked her in, sat beside her, and whispered into the quiet, "Tomorrow, I'll tell you everything." At 6:03 a.m., sunlight slipped quietly through the blinds, casting gold across Mei's sleeping face. Hiroshi sat on the edge of the sofa, staring at her. A dozen times that morning, he rehearsed the words. None felt right. Nothing could prepare a child for the truth, that everything she believed about her origins was a lie. But she deserved it. The truth was the only armor left. Mei stirred, stretching, eyes blinking into the soft light. "Daddy," she mumbled. Hiroshi took a deep breath, his voice steady but soft. "Mei, there's something I need to tell you. About who you are, and where you come from." She sat up, clutching her bear, eyes wide and trusting. He held her hand, and for the first time, he began to speak the truth, not just to protect her, but to arm her with the strength to face whatever came next. Hiroshi reached out, brushing Mei's curls gently. "Good morning, sweetheart." She smiled, then paused. "You didn't leave." "No," he said. "I needed to be here today." Kaori entered from the kitchen with 2 mugs. She handed one to Hiroshi and nodded. He knew that look, it meant now or never. Hiroshi turned back to Mei. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you a story. A true one." Mei sat up, folding her arms around her knees, curious but quiet. "There's something I've kept from you," he continued. "Not because I wanted to lie, but because I was scared. Scared it would hurt you." "Is it about mommy?" she asked. Hiroshi hesitated. "Yes. And also about who you are." He told her everything, about Yuki's past, how she'd been part of something dangerous, how she used identities to survive, how Mei came into his life like a quiet miracle. He told her about the man in Hokkaido, the photograph, the birth certificate. He watched her eyes darken, not with fear, but with something older, disbelief, loss. "I'm not her real daughter," Mei whispered. "No," Hiroshi said softly. "But you're my daughter." That never changed. Mei's lower lip quivered. "Who was my real daddy?" Hiroshi pulled out the folder he'd brought home. Inside was a photo, an old one. A kind-eyed man standing in front of a classroom chalkboard. The name printed beneath, David Okoye, software engineer and teacher, Lagos, Nigeria. He was brilliant, Hiroshi said. And brave. He stood for what was right, even when it cost him his life. Mei stared at the photo in silence, then asked softly, "Did he love me?" Hiroshi swallowed. "He never got the chance to meet you, but he would have loved you with all his heart." Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. Hiroshi reached for her, but she held up a hand. "I need to think." She walked to her room, the door closing with a click. Hiroshi sat frozen. Kaori exhaled from the kitchen. "She's strong. Give her space." "I just ripped her world apart." "No," Kaori said. "You gave her a foundation. Now she gets to build something real on it." That afternoon, Mei emerged, no tears, no tantrums, just quiet resolve. "Can we go to the library?" she asked. Hiroshi blinked. "The library? I want to learn about Nigeria." He smiled slowly. "Of course." They spent the next 3 hours at the Shibuya branch, flipping through books on Nigerian culture, geography, and language. Mei soaked up every word, writing notes in a little green notebook tucked in her backpack. When they returned home, Mei climbed onto the couch beside Kaori. "Did you know I'm Nigerian?" she asked proudly. Kaori smiled. "I do now." Mei leaned back, satisfied. "I'm going to write a report about my family. Real and chosen." That night, as Hiroshi tucked her in, Mei looked up. "Daddy?" "Yes, baby? Do I still have to keep my last name?" He paused. "No. You can choose." She smiled. "I want to keep it. It reminds me of you." Hiroshi bent down and kissed her forehead. "Then Tanaka it is." As she drifted to sleep, Hiroshi stepped out onto the apartment balcony. The Tokyo skyline shimmered in quiet hums of light. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "She knows now. Prepare her." Attached was a video file. He opened it. Grainy footage, a man in a military uniform entering a dark hallway, followed by a woman, then another figure, masked, armed. The timestamp read, "Today, 4:26 p.m. The hallway wasn't unfamiliar, it was Mei's school. Hiroshi dropped the phone, racing inside. "Kaori," he shouted. She was already moving, pistol in hand, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Grab Mei," she said. "We don't have much time." They woke Mei gently but urgently. "Baby, we have to go," Hiroshi said, scooping her up. "Why?" she asked, groggy. "Because the bad people found us." She didn't cry, didn't scream, just clutched the photo of her father and whispered, "Let's go." They slipped out through the stairwell into the alley. A black SUV was waiting. Kaori slid into the driver's seat, Hiroshi and Mei in the back. "Where are we going?" Mei asked. Hiroshi squeezed her hand. "To a place where the truth is more powerful than fear." Under the cloak of early dawn, the black SUV cut through the empty back roads of rural Hokkaido, its headlights slicing the mist. Hiroshi sat in the back seat, arms around Mei, her head resting on his chest. Kaori gripped the wheel tightly, her eyes flicking between the rearview mirror and the winding road ahead. She hadn't spoken since they left Tokyo. "Where are we going?" Mei whispered. Hiroshi looked down at her. "To someone I trust, someone who can keep us safe." Kaori turned off onto a gravel path flanked by cedar trees. After several minutes, a cabin appeared, a weathered structure with a metal roof and thick shutters. No neighbors in sight, only the chirping of birds and the rustle of wind through the trees. Kaori killed the engine. "We'll stay here for now," she said. "It's off-grid. No signals, no surprises." They entered quickly. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and old paper. Books were everywhere, stacked on counters, crammed onto shelves. Hiroshi moved toward the back room, setting Mei down on a cot. "Sleep, sweetheart," he said. "I'll be nearby." Mei nodded silently, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Hiroshi kissed her forehead, then stepped outside with Kaori. "We need to talk," she said flatly, lighting a cigarette on the porch. Hiroshi closed the door behind him. "About the video." Kaori blew out smoke. "The timestamp, the corridor, that wasn't random surveillance. Someone wants you to know they're close. They want to rattle you." "It's working," he said bitterly. She looked at him, eyes sharp. "We need to think strategically. Who else knows about Mei's true background?" "No one. Not after the files were scrubbed. Just you, me, and Aiko." Kaori's jaw tightened. "Your wife tried to poison you 6 months ago. Why is she even still alive?" Hiroshi sighed. "Because if I exposed her fully, the board would spin it into a scandal. The company would fall, and Mei would be dragged into the media circus." Kaori tossed the cigarette. "Well, someone on the inside is feeding intel to whoever's watching us. And I have a feeling Aiko's not done." That night, after Mei fell asleep again, Hiroshi stayed up in the cabin's den, scanning the rest of the files the anonymous sender had attached. Most were surveillance clips, drone footage of his building, grainy images of Mei at school. But one file was different. It was a recording, audio only. He played it. Static crackled. Then a voice, female, crisp, cold. "You don't deserve that child, Hiroshi. You never did. She was a mistake. You'll lose her and everything else, just like I planned." Hiroshi's hands clenched the armrests. "Yuki?" Kaori stepped into the room behind him. "She sent that?" she asked. He nodded. "She's unraveling." Kaori sat across from him. "Or she's confident." Hiroshi stared at the fire now crackling with low flame. "She's moving in the open. That means she's ready for something." The next morning, they woke to a knock at the cabin door. Hiroshi motioned for Kaori to stay back. He moved quietly to the side window and peered through a slit in the curtain. An older man stood outside, gray beard, denim jacket, holding a thermos. Hiroshi relaxed. "It's Taro," he said. "He owns the land next door." Hiroshi opened the door. "Morning, Taro." The man smiled. "Figured you might want fresh tea. Saw the tire tracks last night." "Appreciate it," Hiroshi said, taking the thermos. Taro's eyes flicked to the SUV. "Something tells me you're not just up here for the weekend." Hiroshi's smile faded. "Family trouble." Taro nodded, understanding more than he said. "You're safe here. Cell towers don't even work half the time. Nobody comes this far unless they're lost or hiding." As Taro walked off, Kaori whispered, "We'll need him. Local eyes. Quiet loyalty." Later that day, while Mei played with a dog Kaori had rescued years ago, an old Shiba Inu named Kuma, Hiroshi walked to the shed behind the cabin. Inside, under a tarp, lay a metal case. He opened it, 2 pistols, 1 compact rifle, a burner phone, and a USB stick marked with tape. Fallout plan. He hadn't touched it in 5 years. Kaori entered silently behind him. "You think it's time?" Hiroshi nodded. Yuki crossed the line. "I'm going to Osaka." Kaori's brow furrowed. "You can't just walk into the lion's den." "I won't. But someone on the inside still owes me. I'll get the evidence I need to bring her down and protect Mei." Kaori grabbed his arm. "You're not alone in this, Tanaka." Hiroshi met her eyes. "I know." That night, after dinner, Mei curled up next to Hiroshi on the couch with a book. "Can I ask something?" she said. "Always." She pointed to the photograph of her birth father on the table. "Do you think he'd be proud of me?" Hiroshi looked down at her, eyes filled with love. I know he would be. And so am I. Mei nodded solemnly, then leaned her head on his arm. I want to learn to protect people, too. Like you, like Kaori. Hiroshi smiled. One step at a time, little warrior. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Inside, the fire glowed steady. But far beyond the woods, in a high-rise office lit by moonlight, Yuki Tanaka watched the same cabin on a monitor, fingers drumming the desk. She turned to the man beside her. Activate Phase 2. Make sure he sees it coming. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the cabin silence was shattered by a single beep, barely audible but piercing enough to wake Hiroshi instantly. He sat upright on the couch where he'd dozed off, hand reaching for the burner phone on the table. One new message: your safe house isn't safe anymore. Move now. No number, no trace, just a cold warning from someone watching, or maybe someone trying to help. Hiroshi stood and tapped Kaori's shoulder where she slept in the armchair. We've been compromised. She opened her eyes instantly, no grogginess, just clarity. Time? Just now. We need to go. They moved like clockwork. Hiroshi packed a small duffel with essentials while Kaori retrieved a rolled-up blueprint from the floorboards, an emergency escape map of the surrounding woods and secondary roads. Mei was still asleep in the back room, curled under 2 thick blankets. Hiroshi lifted her gently. Daddy, she mumbled. Shoo. We're going on another little trip, okay? Just hold on to me. Mei clung to him, half asleep, sensing the tension in his voice. Kuma followed close behind, tail low but alert. By 2:29 a.m., they were back in the SUV, rolling down the gravel path without headlights. Kaori used night vision goggles to guide the way, swerving off the mapped road onto a hunting trail that led toward a rural airstrip 20 miles away. As they drove, Kaori asked, "Think it's Yuki again?" Hiroshi stared out the window, jaw tight. It's always her. She's pulling strings through the company, the board, and she's not just coming for me anymore. She's coming for Mei. Kaori's eyes narrowed. Then we hit back. Hiroshi looked over. We don't have enough yet. We need that file, the one you said only Sato could get. Kaori nodded grimly. Then we go see Sato. They reached the airstrip at 4:07 a.m. A retired military pilot named Daichi stood waiting near a small twin-engine Cessna, its engines already humming. You owe me for waking me up, Daichi grunted. But I figured if you're dragging a kid and a dog into my hangar, it must be serious. It is, Hiroshi said. We need to get to Osaka quietly. Daichi nodded. Fuel's loaded. Keep your heads down. 30 minutes later, they were in the air, leaving the fog-covered woods behind as sunrise painted the sky in pale orange. Mei was curled against Hiroshi's side, headphones over her ears, watching clouds drift past the window. Kaori sat up front with Daichi, running over landing protocols and airport clearance. Hiroshi scrolled through the burner phone again. The anonymous message haunted him. It hadn't just been a threat, it was precise. Someone close, someone with access. His thoughts drifted to Sato. Haruto Sato, former Japanese intelligence, now an independent cybersecurity contractor with high-level clearance and enough dirt on half of Tokyo to build a mountain. He had helped Hiroshi years ago during a hostile takeover and vanished into semi-retirement afterward. Kaori said she could get him to talk. By 7:43 a.m., they landed on a private strip outside Osaka. A black pickup truck waited near the hangar, engine humming. Kaori stepped out first, then gestured for Hiroshi and Mei. A tall, grizzled man stepped from the truck, silver beard, worn baseball cap, eyes sharp as glass. Tanaka, Sato said flatly. Been a while, Hiroshi replied. I heard you married a snake. Hiroshi's jaw flexed. I did worse. I trusted her. Sato looked over at Mei, then Kaori. You bring trouble to my doorstep. I bring truth, Hiroshi said. And I need your help. Inside Sato's bunker-like home, beneath reinforced concrete and steel shutters, they laid it all out, the poisoning attempt, the surveillance footage, the mysterious message, Yuki's voice on tape. Sato listened without speaking. Finally, he got up, opened a locked cabinet, and pulled out a hard drive. This, he said, placing it on the table, is every communication your wife had with foreign buyers, shell corporations, and 2 men she's paid off in the past 6 months. One of them's a judge. Hiroshi blinked. How long have you had this? Too long. I was waiting for you to come to your senses. Kaori leaned forward. Is there anything we can use legally? Sato smirked. Depends on how dirty you want to get. I can get you in front of Representative Nakamura's staff. They're already sniffing around the Tanaka Foundation's numbers. Hiroshi nodded slowly. Set it up, but keep Mei out of this. Sato raised an eyebrow. That's going to be hard. Your wife's already floated a story to the media, says you kidnapped your own daughter. Hiroshi's face went pale. She what? She's painting you as unstable. Claims she found a suicide note, and the board is backing her, at least publicly. Hiroshi stood, pacing. She's sealing me off from every direction. If I don't go public, she wins. But if I do, May's dragged into it. Kaori stood. There's one more move. Hiroshi looked at her. What? We flipped the narrative. She pulled out a flash drive. I've been tracking her. She's not just laundering money. She's using non-profit funds to finance offshore accounts under May's name. Hiroshi froze. She's using our daughter to hide her fraud. Sato nodded. If that goes public, she's done. Hiroshi sat slowly, the weight of it all settling over him. She's not going to stop, he whispered. Not until I'm erased. Kaori looked him in the eye. Then we make sure the world sees the truth first. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling through the trees like a warning. Inside, they began drawing up the plan that would change everything. Under the cover of night, the plan unfolded like a carefully written symphony. Sato, with his years of experience in government espionage and corporate infiltration, worked methodically at his terminals, typing without hesitation. Every keystroke traced the money, millions laundered through fake charities, buried under the name of a 6-year-old girl now asleep on a couch down the hall, clutching a stuffed bear that smelled like her old bedroom. In the kitchen, Hiroshi stood over the sink, staring at the tap as water trickled out. His knuckles were white around a chipped mug. She used May's name, he muttered, voice tight. She used my daughter as a cover for her crimes. Kaori leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You didn't see it before because you didn't want to. You thought you were protecting May by staying silent. But the longer you stay quiet, the louder Yuki becomes. Hiroshi turned, eyes bloodshot. I know that now. Sato walked in, placing a folder on the counter. Bank records, offshore transfers. 2 of them point directly to a shell account tied to May's social security number. All we need is a whistleblower's affidavit, and you've got a scandal. Hiroshi opened the folder, dozens of transactions, dates, amounts, aliases. He recognized a name Yuki had once casually used at a charity gala. She's been planning this for years. She's good, Sato said flatly. But not good enough. Kaori stepped forward. We need to act fast. She's already called in favors with the media. There's a news segment airing tomorrow morning on NHK claiming you fled the country with May. Hiroshi's fists clenched. What time? 7 a.m., Sato replied. But we can beat it if we go live tonight. Live? Hiroshi asked. Kaori nodded. We record a statement. You tell the truth. You expose everything, calmly, clearly. You show the documents. You don't accuse. You reveal. Hiroshi looked uncertain. That could put May in the crossfire. Sato shook his head. Not if we control the narrative. Frame it as a father trying to protect his daughter from financial abuse and corporate fraud. You're not just a CEO. You're a parent whose child was exploited. That lands hard, especially with voters and donors. Hiroshi looked toward the hallway where May's soft breathing could be heard. He sighed deeply. Then let's do it. An hour later, the living room was transformed into a makeshift studio. Kaori adjusted the camera while Sato fine-tuned the lighting. Hiroshi sat on a worn armchair, folder in his lap, tie loosened just enough to look human, but not defeated. Kaori counted down. 3, 2. The red light blinked on. My name is Hiroshi Tanaka, he began, voice steady but weighted with emotion. You may know me as a businessman, a philanthropist, or simply as the CEO of Tanaka Industries. But tonight, I speak to you not in any of those roles. I speak to you as a father. He paused, looked down, then back at the camera. My daughter May is 6 years old. She is the light of my life, and she has been used as a pawn in a scheme to launder millions through my own company. He opened the folder and held up a document. These are bank records, transferred funds, accounts tied to her name, not by accident, but by deliberate intent by people I once trusted, including my wife. The camera zoomed slowly as he continued. This isn't just about a company. It's about a child and the lengths to which power will go to protect itself, even at the cost of family. 10 minutes later, the recording was done. Kaori uploaded the video through encrypted channels to 5 major outlets, one a close contact at a reputable national podcast, another to an old friend at NHK. By 4:12 a.m., the video was live. By 4:43 a.m., it had 80,000 views. By 6 a.m., the story was picked up by news blogs, small radio stations, and social media threads titled CEO's Wife Launders Money in Child's Name. By the time NHK aired their pre-scheduled smear segment at 7 a.m., the tide had turned. The host looked visibly nervous as she read the teleprompter. Midway through, her producer handed her a note. She blinked, turned to the camera, and said, "We are receiving new information as we speak. Apparently, Hiroshi Tanaka has released a public statement detailing financial misconduct tied to his daughter's name. We will update you as this story unfolds. Hiroshi, Kaori, and Sato watched the broadcast in silence. Mei sat between them, legs swinging, not fully understanding the gravity of what was happening. Is that you on television? She asked softly. Hiroshi nodded. Yeah, sweetheart. Did you win? He smiled faintly. Not yet, but we're close. Sato stood. This is where it gets dangerous. Yuki won't retreat. She'll double down. She still has the board, the investors, and maybe worse. Kaori looked at Hiroshi. You ready for that? He stood. I have to be. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Whether they were passing through or coming closer, no one could be sure. But inside that bunker, the war for truth had begun in earnest. And this time, the world was finally watching. The knock came at 7:32 a.m., 3 sharp raps against the reinforced door. Sato was already at the monitor, scanning the feed. A black SUV, no plates. 2 men in dark suits stood outside, hands visible, posture tight, military, not corporate. They're not hers, Sato said. These guys are federal. Kaori leaned over his shoulder. NPA, too polished, too careful. Could be Justice Ministry or Tanaka's old contacts. Hiroshi walked in, buttoning his shirt. Mei was still curled up on the couch behind him. If they were here to arrest me, they'd already be inside. Sato opened the speaker channel. Identify yourselves. A calm baritone voice responded. Special Agent Kenji Mori, Ministry of Justice. We're not here to arrest anyone. We're here to talk. Off the record. Sato turned to Hiroshi. Your call. Hiroshi exhaled, nodded. The locks disengaged with a hiss. The 2 agents entered slowly, hands still visible. The taller one, Mori, held a slim black folder. He looked around, eyes scanning every angle. You've got quite the setup here, Mori said. Reminds me of Okinawa. I was never in Okinawa, Sato replied. Mori smiled faintly. Of course not. Hiroshi stepped forward. You've seen the video. Mori nodded. Half the country's seen the video. The other half will by noon. You caused a political firestorm. Kaori folded her arms. Good. Mori raised a brow. Depends on who you're trying to burn. Sato stepped in. If you're here to run damage control for the administration. I'm not, Mori interrupted. But there are people who want this buried fast. Yuki Tanaka has deep ties, judges, Diet members, 2 former finance ministers. She's already activated them. There's talk of painting this as a mental breakdown, that you faked the documents. Hiroshi shook his head. You saw the data. Sato can testify. Kaori was there. My daughter, she was used. Mori looked at the couch. Mei was awake now, sitting up, watching the adults speak in hushed tones. Her small eyes were wide, but she said nothing. I believe you, Mori said quietly. That's why I'm here. He handed Hiroshi the folder. Inside is a sealed deposition from one of Yuki's former assistants. She disappeared 2 years ago. She's in witness protection now. She documented everything, names, dates, threats, even a false medical report filed under Mei's name. She was the one who realized what was going on. Hiroshi flipped through the pages, heart racing. This is what we need. Mori nodded. Yes, but there's a catch. There always is, Sato muttered. You can't go public yet, Mori said. You need to let this follow a legal process. Quietly. If you explode this now, Yuki walks with immunity. The Justice Ministry has been building a case for 6 months. Your video just gave us the missing link. But if you jump the gun, she'll invoke attorney-client privilege and drag the process out for years. Hiroshi looked stunned. So you want me to go silent again? No, Mori replied. I want you to stay alive. And if you go loud now, she won't hesitate to retaliate. Hard. Kaori stepped forward. We've already gone loud. There's no going back. Mori held her gaze. Then you better disappear. Not hide, vanish. Let us take it from here. Hiroshi looked down at Mei. She was clutching her bear again. Where would we go? He asked. Mori took out a phone and slid it across the table. There's a contact saved under the name Hana. She runs a facility in Hokkaido, private, secure. You'll have protection, and Sato can work remotely. Sato snorted. You're assuming I'm coming. You're already in, Mori said. You know too much. Hiroshi stared at the phone, then looked at Sato. What do you think? Sato hesitated, then said, I think Yuki Tanaka won't let us breathe if we stay. And if we run now, maybe, just maybe, we live long enough to see her fall. Kaori glanced toward the window. When do we leave? Mori checked his watch. Now. Within 30 minutes, the small team had packed up. The drives were encrypted, the cameras wiped, and May dressed in a new set of clothes Kaori had picked up from a thrift store. The black SUV now had plates borrowed from a government motor pool. They moved fast, like they'd done this before. As they pulled away from the safe house, Sato glanced back at the Osaka skyline. Think she knows we're gone? Mori, driving, replied, she will in about 20 minutes. Kaori uploaded the video through encrypted channels to 5 major outlets, one a close contact at a reputable national podcast, another to an old friend at the Japan Times. By 4:12 a.m., the video was live. By 4:43 a.m., it had 80,000 views. By 6 a.m., the story was picked up by news blogs, small radio stations, and social media threads titled CEO's Wife Launders Money in Child's Name. By the time NHK aired their pre-scheduled smear segment at 7 a.m., the tide had turned. The host looked visibly nervous as she read the teleprompter. Midway through, her producer handed her a note. She blinked, turned to the camera, and said, "We are receiving new information as we speak. Apparently, Hiroshi Tanaka has released a public statement detailing financial misconduct tied to his daughter's name. We will update you as this story unfolds." Hiroshi, Kaori, and Sato watched the broadcast in silence. May sat between them, legs swinging, not fully understanding the gravity of what was happening. "Is that you on television?" she asked softly. Hiroshi nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. Did you win?" He smiled faintly. "Not yet, but we're close." Sato stood. "This is where it gets dangerous. Yuki won't retreat. She'll double down. She still has the board, the investors, and maybe worse." Kaori looked at Hiroshi. "You ready for that?" He stood. "I have to be." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Whether they were passing through or coming closer, no one could be sure. But inside that bunker, the war for truth had begun in earnest. And this time, the world was finally watching. The knock came at 7:32 a.m., 3 sharp raps against the reinforced door. Sato was already at the monitor, scanning the feed. A black SUV, no plates. 2 men in dark suits stood outside, hands visible, posture tight, military, not corporate. "They're not hers," Sato said. "These guys are federal." Kaori leaned over his shoulder. "NPA, too polished, too careful. Could be Justice Ministry or Tanaka's old contacts." Hiroshi walked in, buttoning his shirt. May was still curled up on the couch behind him. "If they were here to arrest me, they'd already be inside." Sato opened the speaker channel. "Identify yourselves." A calm baritone voice responded. "Special Agent Kenji Mori, Ministry of Justice. We're not here to arrest anyone. We're here to talk. Off the record." Sato turned to Hiroshi. "Your call." Hiroshi exhaled, nodded. The locks disengaged with a hiss. The 2 agents entered slowly, hands still visible. The taller one, Mori, held a slim black folder. He looked around, eyes scanning every angle. "You've got quite the setup here," Mori said. "Reminds me of Okinawa." "I was never in Okinawa," Sato replied. Mori smiled faintly. "Of course not." Hiroshi stepped forward. "You've seen the video." Mori nodded. "Half the country's seen the video. The other half will by noon. You caused a political firestorm." Kaori folded her arms. "Good." Mori raised a brow. "Depends on who you're trying to burn." Sato stepped in. "If you're here to run damage control for the administration." "I'm not," Mori interrupted. "But there are people who want this buried fast. Yuki Tanaka has deep ties, judges, Diet members, 2 former finance ministers. She's already activated them. There's talk of painting this as a mental breakdown, that you faked the documents." Hiroshi shook his head. "You saw the data." "Sato can testify. Kaori was there. My daughter, she was used." Mori looked at the couch. May was awake now, sitting up, watching the adults speak in hushed tones. Her small eyes were wide, but she said nothing. "I believe you," Mori said quietly. "That's why I'm here." He handed Hiroshi the folder. Inside is a sealed deposition from one of Yuki's former assistants. She disappeared 2 years ago. She's in witness protection now. She documented everything, names, dates, threats, even a false medical report filed under May's name. She was the one who realized what was going on. Hiroshi flipped through the pages, heart racing. This is what we need." Mori nodded. "Yes, but there's a catch." "There always is," Sato muttered. "You can't go public yet," Mori said. "You need to let this follow a legal process. Quietly. If you explode this now, Yuki walks with immunity. The Justice Ministry has been building a case for 6 months. Your video just gave us the missing link. But if you jump the gun, she'll invoke attorney-client privilege and drag the process out for years." Hiroshi looked stunned. "So you want me to go silent again?" No, Mori replied. I want you to stay alive. And if you go loud now, she won't hesitate to retaliate. Hard. Kaori stepped forward. We've already gone loud. There's no going back. Mori held her gaze. Then you better disappear. Not hide, vanish. Let us take it from here. Hiroshi looked down at Mei. She was clutching her bear again. Where would we go? He asked. Mori took out a phone and slid it across the table. There's a contact saved under the name Hana. She runs a facility in Hokkaido, private, secure. You'll have protection, and Sato can work remotely. Sato snorted. You're assuming I'm coming. You're already in, Mori said. You know too much. Hiroshi stared at the phone, then looked at Sato. What do you think? Sato hesitated, then said, I think Yuki Tanaka won't let us breathe if we stay. And if we run now, maybe, just maybe, we live long enough to see her fall. Kaori glanced toward the window. When do we leave? Mori checked his watch. Now. Within 30 minutes, the small team had packed up. The drives were encrypted, the cameras wiped, and Mei dressed in a new set of clothes Kaori had picked up from a thrift store. The black SUV now had plates borrowed from a government motor pool. They moved fast, like they'd done this before. As they pulled away from the safe house, Sato glanced back at the Osaka skyline. Think she knows we're gone? Mori, driving, replied, she will in about 20 minutes. Hiroshi held Mei close as she rested against his chest in the back seat. Her voice came soft, muffled against his shirt. Are we running away, Daddy? He hesitated, then kissed her forehead. No, baby. We're running toward the truth. Behind them, a storm was brewing, but ahead, just maybe, was a shot at something more than justice. A shot at redemption. Snow fell quietly over Hokkaido as the black SUV rolled up a long gravel driveway flanked by cedar trees. The house at the end was more fortress than farmhouse, stone walls, steel shutters, and a gated entrance with no visible cameras, but far too much security to be normal. A woman in her 60s opened the door before they knocked. Her silver hair was braided into a crown, and her face bore the calm of someone who had seen the worst of the world. You must be Hiroshi, she said, extending a hand. I'm Hana. Hiroshi shook it firmly. Thank you for helping us. She looked down at Mei, who clung to Kaori's leg. And you must be the little light everyone's talking about. Mei managed a nod. Hana's smile was gentle. Come in. I've made miso soup. Inside, the air was warm with the smell of seaweed and old books. The home was fortified, yes, but lived in, blankets draped over chairs, framed photos of JSDF units, kendo tournaments, and children playing in rice fields. Sato scanned the perimeter before settling near the fireplace. How secure is this place? He asked. Hana poured tea without looking up. I've hosted more than a dozen whistleblowers here in the last 20 years. Tanaka would need a court order, a satellite scan, and the gods themselves to find you. Kaori finally allowed herself to exhale. Over dinner, Hana briefed them. The deposition Mori gave you is just the start. There are offshore accounts, dummy charities, even a death certificate filed under your name, Hiroshi, dated 2 weeks ago. Hiroshi froze. She declared me dead. Hana nodded. If you died mysteriously today, the paperwork would already be waiting. That's how these people work. They erase you before they destroy you. Mei, sensing the tension, reached for Hiroshi's hand under the table. I won't let her win, he said softly. You already dented her, Hana replied. But now we need the knockout. That night, Hiroshi couldn't sleep. He stood by the window, watching the snow thicken across the hills. Hana joined him quietly, 2 mugs in her hands. She's your daughter, isn't she? She asked. Hiroshi nodded. Not by blood, but yes. Hana studied his face. She looks up to you like you're the only star left in her sky. Whatever happens next, keep that light on. Hiroshi's jaw clenched. Yuki wanted to use her like a tool, a sympathy puppet, a shield for corporate fraud and political leverage. And you gave her a name, Hana said. A home. A father. In the morning, Mori called. It's begun, he said over speaker. Tanaka just held a press conference. Claimed Hiroshi was mentally unstable, faked adoption papers, and fled with a child he wasn't authorized to keep. Sato barked a laugh. Classic misdirection. Mori's voice was low. She's playing hardball. The assistant prosecutor general is being leaned on. We may lose our window if we don't act fast. What do you need? Hiroshi asked. Proof. A final piece. Something undeniable that ties Tanaka directly to the offshore fund and the falsified birth certificate. We think it's on a drive stored at her estate, room 4B in her private wing. Kaori raised an eyebrow. You want us to break into Tanaka's house? No, Mori replied. I want you to retrieve something that belongs to you. You live there. You have legal access. And Hana can help. Hana looked up. I still have my credentials. I was her chief of staff before I blew the whistle in 2009. Hiroshi stared at the phone. When? Tomorrow night, midnight. Lights out for 20 minutes. We'll trigger a false fire alarm and loop the security feed. Kaori looked at Hiroshi. Are you ready to walk back into that hell? He looked at Mei, reading quietly near the hearth, a blanket around her small shoulders. I'd walk through fire. The next day was spent in preparation. Sato assembled blueprints of the estate, now coated with thermal overlays. Hana coached them through Yuki's likely behavioral patterns, her traps, her taste in surveillance. She always kept a decoy safe in her office, Hana warned. The real goods are hidden in plain sight, likely disguised as something sentimental. Night came heavy. The wind howled over the hills. At 11:47 p.m., the SUV returned to Tokyo, headlights off, hearts pounding. Tanaka's estate loomed like a sleeping beast. Inside the command van, Mori's voice crackled. Fire alarm in 3, 2, 1. Red lights flared across the mansion. Sprinklers triggered. Screams of confusion echoed. The guard shift scrambled into evacuation. Hiroshi, Kaori, and Hana slipped through the east entrance in black gear. Sato directed from the van. You've got 20 minutes. Go. Inside, the marble floors reflected emergency lights. Portraits of Tanaka's ancestors stared down like judges. They moved quickly, silent as ghosts, up the grand staircase. Room 4B was locked. Kaori produced a thin blade, picked it in seconds. Inside, familiar furniture, the bed Hiroshi had once slept in, the desk, the dresser. Focus, Sato whispered through the earpiece. Hiroshi dropped to his knees, scanning the floorboards. Hana moved to the bookshelf. She loved this one, Hana muttered, pulling a worn volume of The Tale of Genji. Inside the hollowed pages, an encrypted drive. Got it, she said. But just as they turned to leave, a voice rang out. Going somewhere? It was Yuki, and she wasn't alone. She stood just beyond the doorway, flanked by 2 private security officers. Her tailored white coat shimmered under the flashing emergency lights. In her gloved hands was a sleek, compact pistol pointed directly at Hiroshi. I warned you, darling, she said coldly. You should have stayed dead. Hiroshi slowly stepped in front of Hana and Kaori. It's over, Yuki, Hiroshi said, voice steady. We have everything. The files, the drive, your fake accounts. The Justice Ministry will see it all by morning. She smiled, cruel and elegant. You think I haven't survived worse? You think I'll let you ruin me with some doctored drive from a dusty book? She tilted her head. Hand it over now, and I might let you leave here with your legs intact. Kaori's voice was calm. You're bluffing. If you wanted us dead, you would have already pulled the trigger. Yuki chuckled. You forget I've pulled triggers in silk gloves and never gotten a drop on me. Hana stepped forward. Enough. I watched you lie to Diet members, threaten whistleblowers, destroy families just to protect your empire. But this time, you targeted a little girl. Her voice broke slightly. And that's where it ends. Yuki's eyes flicked to Hana. The ex-chief of staff returns from the dead. How poetic. Hiroshi used the moment. Sato, now. A deafening sound cracked through the estate, flashbangs. The hallway filled with smoke as tactical boots hit the floor in unison. Sato and Mori's team burst through from the east wing, weapons trained, voices booming. Drop the weapon. Hands in the air. Yuki's guards moved to fire but were instantly disarmed by Mori's precision shots, non-lethal, straight to the shoulders. Yuki stood frozen, the pistol trembling in her grip, her white coat glowing red under the emergency strobes. Sato approached, cuffing her wrist swiftly and without ceremony. Yuki Tanaka, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder, and a dozen counts of obstruction of justice. As he read her rights, Yuki turned to Hiroshi, her voice venomous. You really think this makes you a hero? That girl will never be yours. Never. Hiroshi's expression didn't waver. She already is. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. News vans clustered behind barricades at the end of the estate's long drive. Reporters shouted questions as Yuki was led out in cuffs, flanked by NPA agents. Hana stepped into the back of the SUV, clutching the encrypted drive tightly. Hiroshi held Mei in his arms as she slept peacefully, her head tucked beneath his chin. Back in the command van, Kaori connected the drive to a secure system. As the files opened, Mori whistled low. This is enough to bring down her entire network. Offshore accounts, fake charities, even hit contracts. This isn't just business corruption, it's international espionage. Hiroshi looked at him. Can we guarantee she never gets out? Mori nodded. We'll bury her under a mountain of federal charges. Hana added quietly, and we'll make sure the world knows the truth. Later that night, in the safe house far from Tokyo, Hiroshi sat with Mei on the porch, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. The sky was clear, stars scattered like tiny promises. "She's gone?" Mei asked softly. "She is," Hiroshi said. "She can't hurt you anymore." Mei looked up. "Will I have to leave again?" "No," he replied, kissing the top of her head. "You're home." Mei closed her eyes. "I liked it better when we were in the snow house with Miss Hannah." Hiroshi smiled. "We'll visit her again, as often as you want." The wind rustled the trees around them. Inside, Kaori poured hot tea. Hannah was already asleep, exhausted from the confrontation. Sato sat at the window, watching the perimeter like a hawk, though even he allowed a moment of ease. Mori returned with an update. NPA's locking down her properties. Tanaka's investors are jumping ship. Civil suits are already lining up. Hiroshi leaned back, exhaling long and hard. "It's finally over, huh?" Mori looked toward Mei. "She's the reason you kept going, isn't she?" Hiroshi nodded. "She reminded me that even in the darkest places, you fight to protect what's good. Even when no one believes in you." Mori nodded respectfully. "Well, now the world does." As dawn approached, a quiet calm settled over them. The storm had passed, and for the first time in a long while, justice didn't feel like a distant dream. It felt like something earned, something real. And for a little girl named Mei, it meant a chance to grow up in peace. 1 month later, the courtroom was packed. Press lined the back rows, their camera lenses pointed toward the front like silent rifles. The judge's gavel struck sharply. "This court is now in session for the state versus Yuki Tanaka." Hiroshi sat quietly in the first row, hands clasped, his dark suit crisp but unpretentious. Beside him, Mei held his hand tightly. She wore a navy blue dress, her curls pinned back by a small silver clip Hannah had given her. Kaori, Sato, and Mori flanked them, a wall of quiet resolve. The prosecution laid out its case like a slow-burning fire. Evidence streamed onto the monitors, emails, bank transactions, video footage. Witnesses gave chilling testimony: a charity executive whose career was destroyed after refusing to launder funds, a hospital director coerced into falsifying records for vulnerable families, and finally, Hannah took the stand. She looked directly at Yuki, who sat stone-faced at the defendant's table. "I served under Mrs. Tanaka for 15 years, Hannah began. I believed in the Foundation's mission until I saw what lay beneath, the manipulation, the exploitation. And when I tried to walk away, she made sure I disappeared." The courtroom murmured. The judge struck his gavel. "Order." Hannah continued, voice firm. "But I came back, not for revenge, for truth. For the little girl she tried to silence, and for the man who refused to give up." Hiroshi exhaled slowly, eyes shining. Later that afternoon, Yuki took the stand. Her lawyer had advised against it, but she insisted. She wore a tailored gray suit, hair tied back, still composed. "Do you deny the charges against you, Mrs. Tanaka?" the prosecutor asked. "I deny that I did anything others wouldn't do in my position," she replied. "I built an empire. I shaped national policy. And yes, I made enemies, but I never betrayed this country. You ordered the death of your husband. I protected our name. You nearly killed his adopted daughter." Yuki paused, then looked directly at Mei. "She was never mine to protect." The silence in the room turned to frost. Mei's fingers tightened around Hiroshi's hand. That was all the jury needed. 2 days later, the verdict came, guilty on all counts. Hiroshi stood on the courthouse steps, microphones thrust toward him. "What's next for you, Mr. Tanaka?" He looked down at Mei, who stood bravely beside him. "We start over," he said simply. "Not as a story about wealth or betrayal, but about healing, about second chances." Spring came early that year. The snow melted from the Tanaka estate, revealing soft green hills and the old cherry blossom garden that had once been Hannah's pride. Hiroshi didn't return to business. He sold off the companies, closed the shell charities, and invested in something new, the Mei Foundation. Its mission: providing medical care for low-income children and protecting whistleblowers in the healthcare system. Hannah became chairwoman. Kaori ran logistics. Sato oversaw security. Mori handled legal strategy and compliance. And Mei, she danced again. Hiroshi watched her from the porch as she twirled barefoot across the lawn, chasing the Shiba Inu Mori had gifted her. Her laughter echoed against the hills, light and free. "Dad," she called. "Come see what I made." He rose slowly, joints aching less these days, and followed her to the side garden. There, in the earth, was a small wooden sign. It read, "Hannah's Garden for Mei." Hannah stood behind them, tears in her eyes. "I wanted her to have something that always grows," Mei said. "Like how she helped me grow." Hiroshi placed a hand on her shoulder. "She'd love that." Hannah smiled, voice catching. "I do." That evening, as they gathered for dinner, the table was filled not with silver and crystal, but with laughter, miso soup, rice balls, and green tea, the way Hiroshi remembered from simpler times. Mori raised a toast to justice, to survival, and to little girls who change everything. Glasses clinked. May grinned. Hiroshi leaned back, eyes scanning the people he now called family. I used to think power was measured in assets, he said softly. But now I know it's who stands with you when you have nothing left. Sato nodded. And who you choose to stand for. Outside, the stars returned, scattered across the Hokkaido night sky. For the first time in years, there was no need for bodyguards, no hidden files, no lies to manage, just peace, just home, just a father and his daughter starting again. This story reminds us that true wealth isn't measured by money or power, but by compassion, loyalty, and the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. It shows that love can be chosen, justice can prevail, and sometimes the smallest voice can spark the biggest change.